Gina.
You know, I used to think Lily was a plaster saint. But it turns out she's really made a silly putty.
Why don't you try asking my father, Cruz? He hired an extra bunch of trigger-happy guards to look after the casino and the ferry boats. Maybe one of them got overzealous.
Sure, and maybe an asteroid fell on the place.
Check into that, Mason. I don't think any possibility is too remote to be looked into in a case like this.
What do you think your daddy did, Mason? To give him all hand grenades?
Welcome to week 112 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We're back from Hawaii, and we, thanks to the Arctic winds that had appeared while we were gone, we were delayed about 5 or 6 hours. So we got an extra 3 hours in the hotel and an extra 3 hours in the airport. FYI, if you ever show up at a hotel and they're on strike, try to get as much free stuff as you can then, because we showed up at the Moana Surf Rider, and we had mentioned last time we were there, they were on strike, and there was no housekeeping, and there was no restaurant, and we were wondering if we could get some sort of a discount or a freebie for that, and we got 2 drink tickets. So if you're ever at a hotel that's on strike and someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, do you want to join our class action lawsuit?" say yes, because you're not going to get anything on the back end. We have, I think I mentioned, thanks to your new MacBook, we got 3 free months of Apple TV. We've been watching a lot of their shows, and we have seen Santa Barbara people that you don't know yet because they haven't shown up, but Tamlin Tamita has shown up as a voiceover so far on Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. And Bunny Tagliati has been given 1 or 2 lines in each episode of the morning show that we've watched so far. I think there are 1 or 2 other couple minor ones that I don't recall at this point. It is Monday, September 15th, 1986 in Santa Barbara. And we watched episode 542. I should apologize for that one episode last week that you can't make it out very well because of the wind, unfortunately. Keith tells Cruz he's going to be spending some time in jail. And he gives him one last chance to tell him where Kelly is. Not clear if Cruz is actually worried that Keith knows something. He does seem a bit anxious when he's talking to Eaton, so I think maybe he suspects, but he definitely hasn't figured out that Keith has bugged his place. Keith says, "You can probably get a job with Victoria Lane driving her limousine." A similar joke to the one he told last week. Cruz tells Cece that Eden let it slip, that Kelly's in Siena. And he says, "I may well go looking for Kelly in Siena and find her not there." And Cece responds with, "I don't want to move her," which is extremely annoying, both to Cruz and to me. And Cruz says, "I don't want to know." So, yeah, kind of dumb of Cece not just to simply take the hint and move her. So this implies that now Cruz is going to tell Keith, "Oh, I overheard something. I think she's in Siena, I guess." Brick asks Cece to kick Lily out of the guest house. And Cece says, "Oh, you don't need to ask." Turns out he and Sophia had already decided to do that. Lionel visits Brick to see if he can help. So we have a nice scene with Lionel and Brick. Mm-hmm. Brick bursts in on Lily and Mason at the police station and tells Lily that if she can work miracles, she should bring back Amy. And to Mason he says, "I guess this is a setback in your everlasting war against Papa." Sophia and Lionel arrive to take Brick home. They mention that Minx is with Johnny. So even though we don't see Minx, we do see Johnny. We don't see Minx, but we get a reference. Brick tells them that the memorial service for Amy is tomorrow. So I'm guessing that's tomorrow in TV time. We'll see. Sophia offers to take Johnny for a couple of days, but Brick says, "No, I'm going to need him." So I think that is keeping him sane while he's planning this memorial service and wrapping things up at work. I think we saw him with a box of his stuff from the casino, so he's packed up his office, he mentioned at one point. So.
And all through this episode, Brick has not cleaned up at all, so he's all covered in
ash and soot. Yeah, and he's got a weird color. Yeah. Brick says, "Okay, I gotta go see Ted and Haley." And Sophia's like, "Well, what are you gonna see them?" And Brick says, "They were there." So I think there's a little bug now at the back of Sophia and probably Lionel's mind that maybe Ted knows something that he shouldn't. Haley finds out that Amy is dead. As you might imagine, she freaks out. Ted tells her that Lily and Mason are the ones to blame. Gina is in the wiretapping van when she hears Haley calling Cruz and leaving a message saying, "Oh, I gotta tell you something really important." Gina, of course, freaks out. She deletes the message and intercepts Haley at the beach house. And she tells her that Lily and Mason are covering for her, and the last thing she needs to do is tell Cruz a different story, which Haley, realizes is true. So I think her main concern is not to make Lily look bad in this case. But whatever, gets her not to say anything. Ted is waiting when they return to the apartment. He had actually found the piece of paper with Cruz's number and was worried that Haley was going to do exactly what she was doing. Before they can have too much of a chat, there's a knock on the door, and it's Cruz with Brick. So Brick hasn't just decided to confront Ted and Haley on his own. He has actually brought Cruz. Ted ends up being the one who answers all the questions, which is suspicious to begin with. He says that Haley was with him that morning and that when they went to Buzz's, Haley was nowhere near the protesters. Brick and Cruz says, "Why don't I give you some time to think about your story?" And they leave, and Brick says to Cruz that Haley is lying. So I don't think he's told Cruz exactly what he's witnessed so far. I think he's giving Ted and Haley the chance to come clean.
Yeah.
Especially as Ted's his brother.
I feel like Ted has been in this situation so many times in the past with different women. So
this reminded me of that time the police burst in while he was with Lakin in the bed. And it's like, is this going to go there? It's kind of funny that the different, looking back on it, the different characters have different cycles that they repeat. Kelly's got the psycho boyfriend cycle, and Ted has the hapless victim stumbling into a situation that he's not at fault for and ending up getting the blame. So,
well, and you remember that's actually why he and Lakin did eventually break up, is because he was not being honest with the police way back.
He's covering for Christie.
Yeah.
Paul comes to take Lily in for questioning. Cece and Sophia come to evict Lily. Mason says that Cece is trying to shift the blame for Amy's death from himself to Lily. So we have the old Mason really coming back here now. Lily is taken in for questioning, and Cece and Mason spar while all that's going on. So many people in the guest house at this point. Gina even shows up. Gina asks Mason to make sure that Haley isn't mentioned. And Mason says that he considers Haley his client, but then so is Lily. So Gina's concerned about exactly what Lily will say. At the station, Keith demands that if she knows who the bomb thrower is, that Lily should give him the name. But Lily just says, "Oh, I don't think any of my followers would do that." Then Mason tries to blame this whole raft of new security guards that Cece has hired to watch over the dock and the boat, the ferry. So he's trying to stir that into the mix. A bunch of potentially untrained, paramilitary types. Cruz asks if Cece armed them all with grenades. So I think Cruz got in a good sting at Mason this time around. Cruz asks for a list of Lily's followers, and Lily says they don't keep track. And then Cruz agrees to investigate Cece's security guards, interestingly enough. He just kind of says it. "Oh, okay, I'll check into them. Leave no stone unturned." I don't know if he's buying for time with his other issue, because I think he's decided he's going to tell Keith about Kelly once this investigation's over. Maybe he's dragging it out for his own purposes, you know.
It'll be interesting to see if we see any of Lily's followers again, because we know that, well, certainly one of them actually created the Molotov cocktail. So whether that's actually someone we see again or you know, he slips away, we don't know.
I mean, there was that meeting, you know, beforehand where they were all gathered and Brick was there, and, you know, Brick had that altercation with that guy. I don't know if Cruz was present there, but maybe they got some names, you know, from that meeting.
Yeah.
Mason tells Lily that he's pleased with himself for putting Cruz on the trail of Cece's guards, because that'll be a while before they get back to badgering Lily.
Yeah.
Ted and Haley burst in and start whispering, and Mason says, "Cool it! If Cruz sees us all whispering, they're going to know that you guys, you know, did something." Cruz actually does walk in just seconds later. And Ted and Lily argue, as they always do, which makes a change from Ted and Haley arguing. Ted says she destroyed Haley's life and Brick and Amy's. And then later Lily asks Mason how come she let Ted talk to her like that. And he says, well, he's at least half right. And then Mason says he feels Lily has been using everyone. So I think Mason's, you know, for the last few days he's been trying to see Lily for who she really is. But Lily says that needing is not using. It helps two people grow closer together. And Mason ends up kissing her. So whether or not he thinks she's a fraud, I think he's attracted to her. Maybe because she looks like Gina. I don't know about that, but we will see.
I seem to remember you telling me that in real life, Lane Davies mentioned that he was not a fan of this storyline at all. So
I think he said he felt he had no chemistry with the actress. So. I don't know if I've ever seen her in any other shows.
I don't know.
Her acting seems fine, but
take a look on IMDb. I'm not allowed to look at
no,
the show
too
on
spoilery
IMDb,
for you.
but
At least I've seen it all, and in theory, it's all in the back of my head or on a CD. It's definitely transferred my brain to at some point. Sophia tells Cece she thought for a moment about postponing the wedding for Brick's sake, but then decided that every second is like time stolen from them. Still think this happens in November. Cece says that he saw the look in Brick's eyes, and it was the same one he had all those years that Sophia was gone. So, anyway, there may be a wedding happening. I don't know. Maybe my memory's faulty about when it happens. And that's it for this episode. We're back home watching it the normal way, and turns out I did not have an English version of that episode last week that we had to watch in German, so would have been just as bad at home. We had some cast credits this time, and I glossed over the cast credits last week because it was I didn't have my computer, and I wasn't going to manually write all those things just down. But Rosa's still in the cast. Sophia is listed as Sophia Capwell / Armonti, and Tori's still in the credits, and Alice is now listed as Alice Jackson again. That's it. Nothing unexpected in the credits.
yeah, I guess if we suddenly noticed Amy still in the credits, we'd be bracing ourselves for some flashback scenes or a ghost like Mary had.
Well, Amy is in these credits, so oh no, that's right. No, they moved her out last time. That's right, and she's not even in the. Wow, she's not even in the guest cast, because the guest cast only gets put on for the actual episode. So if they were in earlier in the week and there was no credits on that episode, then they wouldn't have been credited. So was Amy even credited for her last appearance? I guess maybe not. So, there's an all-new series starting tonight on NBC. Is it tonight? L.A. Law. So we'll be sure to tune in for that. Oh, and we've got all of our cliffhangers from last May to resolve in the coming weeks. So we'll look in on shows like Knots Landing and Dynasty to see how those cliffhangers got resolved. And I was actually going to check to see if Buzz is still on the show. I'll check that next time, because it's quite possible Buzz and Amy's last episode was the same episode, and without a restaurant, maybe Buzz is off the show. Which means we now need a new restaurant to hang out at, since Buzz's and the casino and the bistro and La Mesa are all off the show, and I don't know if they've just told people to start hanging out more at the Orient Express so they don't have to build so many sets, or if we're going to get another sort of lower level bar or restaurant for the poorer characters to hang out at. Mm-hmm. So that's it. We'll be back tomorrow after we watch episode 543. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
You know something, Castillo? I think you should start looking at it through the classifieds, because, well, no, you can probably get a job with Victoria Lane, driving her limousine.
If Lily goes, I go.
Well, Lily is going. And you, my son, can do whatever you wish to do.
We episode 543 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We watched the Tuesday, September 16th, 1986 episode of Santa Barbara. At the beach house, Pearl is making breakfast for Cruz, and he's trying to talk Cruz into giving him some more information about Victoria Lane, but Cruz doesn't want to give anything up and says, you know what? People change in the number of years that have passed since I've seen her, so I have no idea about her at all. Keith arrives with a subpoena for Cruz's phone records. As Keith leaves, Victoria arrives. But Cruz is already gone, so Pearl convinces her to go for a drive with him. They talk about acting as they head to South Beach to watch the sunset. And it's not until she gets to the beach that Victoria realizes that she's getting flashbacks from the beach and should never have agreed to go to the beach and doesn't want to be at the beach. Pearl says, we could go, to another beach. And she goes, it's not the beach itself. Let's go somewhere else.
We've talked about how we see echoing patterns with characters, and I feel like we've seen this play from Pearl quite a bit when he was kind of flirting with Julia and, of course, Courtney and Kelly, and now with Tori, where he just kind of edges his way in and whisks them off in one way or another. That seems to be his MO with the ladies.
My question is he just waiting for Kelly to come back because he thinks Kelly's going to fall in love with him, which I don't think will happen or did happen. Victoria has a flashback, which I think we've seen before, but maybe it had slightly more dialogue than last time, where she hands Cruz the earring and says, "The other earring is gone. I must have dropped it on the beach before Katie arrived." Now that part I don't remember from before Katie arrived. So it does sort of consolidate that she and Cruz and Katie were all on that beach at the same time, which I guess we kind of knew from what Keith said, but clearly there was some interaction if Katie arrived, meaning they did interact. Meaning they did interact in some way. So I'm almost wondering if Cruz was dating Katie originally.
Yeah, they're laying out so many sort of steps with this earring situation, but I have to admit I'm not really putting them together very well. So I still don't really understand why the earring is so crucial and why it is such an emotional trigger for all of these people.
Cece wants Cruz to charge Lily with murder, but Cruz says that she wasn't physically there and there's no link. And then Cruz warns Cece that Keith had subpoenaed his phone records. Cece says he'll move Kelly tonight. And Sophia says that she'll call Kelly but she'll use the phone at the Capwell Hotel. You know, I would think Keith could easily get those records subpoenaed too, but probably a lot more calls to go through. But they must know that they have the number in Italy from Cruz's records, because they all know that Eden called Kelly. So once Keith has that number, he could subpoena the phone records from the hotel, find that call, and say, oh, this was after I subpoenaed your records. You still called her. Keith arrives with his subpoena for Cece, and Cece says, how is my ex-wife? She's finally met someone who can appreciate her talents. Lying, cheating, stealing. He goes through a whole list. Later at the Orient Express, Keith is drinking a clear liquid with ice. Cruz brings him 6 months' worth of phone records. Now, Cruz must know that the phone call from Eden to Kelly are in there. So, you could have gotten these records in secret from the phone company, says Cruz. And Keith says, yeah, but I wanted to see you digging yourself in deeper and deeper. So it's interesting whether or not Keith has actually got something on Cruz in this. I mean, without obviously the plausible deniability that, Cece was hiding the information from Cruz, which he really was until the last couple of days when it actually accidentally slipped out. But once they moved Kelly, really Cruz is in the dark again. So, yeah. But I think Keith may use Eden as leverage, saying, well, if Eden's the one who called her, then she's the one I'm putting in jail, unless you want to quit your job, Cruz. Lily tells Mason about her fire dream, and Lily decides she needs to talk to Brick. Ted is sleeping in a chair at Jane and Haley's apartment. Haley tries to sneak out because she leaves a note saying she plans to ask for Lily's forgiveness, which of course freaks out Ted. Haley tells Lily this is all her fault, and Lily says that they're both to blame, and Mason says that they should both be careful with remarks like that. Haley tells Mason that Brick and Cruz came by and that Ted covered for her, but Brick wasn't buying it. Mason says that the DA's office will be questioning people again today, under oath this time. And I think this is when everyone freaks out. Jane and Ted continue to talk about Haley, and Jane says that Ted's, Haley just doesn't need another person running her life right now. So Ted goes to Cece and asks her to hide Haley, just as he did Kelly. And Cece's like, Haley is not Kelly. Haley is not a member of this family. And in fact, Brick is your brother. Yeah. So he tries to convince Ted to go to the police over the whole thing. Because I think from what Cece and Brick have talked about, Cece gets the idea that Ted is covering for Haley. Lily tells Ted that Haley has decided to talk to the police. So Ted says that he's going to get her out of town. Ted goes back to their apartment and asks Jane to help him pack a bag for Haley. And as Jane pulls out what looked like a jacket of some kind, she smelled the smoke on it and realized, did Haley have something to do with this explosion that buzzes? Anyway, Jane still decides to continue to help and gets her a much better, less flimsy suitcase to use. Cece tries again to evict Lily, but Mason says, we should wait at least a week. Otherwise, it'll look like there's a direct tie-in between the explosion and you evicting Lily. So, and then Mason says, and if Lily goes, I go. And Cece says, my son, you can do whatever you wish to do. Or, let's try it again. You, my son, can do whatever you wish to do. So Cece's not taking Mason's bait here and saying, yeah, you're out of here. He's leaving it on Mason. If you're going to leave, then you can't say it was because of me this time. Brick complains that nobody's been arrested. Sophia says that maybe Ted will remember something. This discussion's all happening at the church, where Amy's memorial is coming up. Brick says that someone's going to answer to me for this, and I don't care who gets hurt. Then Brick briefly goes to the Capwell house to talk to Cece and to tell him he's holding him and the casino responsible for Amy's death. Then he rushes back to the church, just in time for Haley to show up. And she says it was an accident, just as Lily and Mason walk in. So I feel like she's already said enough that even if Mason stops her now, Brick knows. And I think Brick knows anyway. Right?
Yeah, Brick was I think, pretty suspicious of Haley from the beginning. And this, I think, will confirm it for him.
I think he'll be more angry about it because of the hiding and the lying. So I think he might go ahead and try to press charges against Haley. But, I think Mason might say, look, someone else provided all these cans. Obviously, Haley didn't know that one was the bomb. Maybe he can calm Brick down. And that is the end of this Tuesday episode. So we'll be back after we watch episode 544. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Timmons, how are you with my ex-wife? How is she doing? Isn't it wonderful that Gina has found someone who appreciates her finer talents in life? Lying, cheating, adultery, blackmail.
Aunt Gina, what a long nose you have. Lily is going to make a public apology, Rick.
What about murdering my wife?
Welcome back.
Hello.
This is episode 544 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. We are in September of 1986, and of course that's when all the new fall shows start on U.S. network television. And new shows for 1986 that we have to look forward to are Alf, a show about an alien, played by a puppet. Perfect Strangers, starring Bronson Pinchot, whom we know from those one or two Beverly Hills Cop movies. Matlock, Andy Griffith returns to television as a judge, detective, I don't even know. The Oprah Winfrey Show, since Phil Donahue has retired. Designing Women, starring several people from that show that aired last year, whose name I can't recall. Delta Burke and I can't even remember the other lady's name. I think they played sisters on that other show.
Filthy rich, that's a whole lot of money. But a fact is a fact, you gotta clean up your act if you wanna be filthy rich.
L.A. Law, which is a show about law that's sort of, I think, in the style of Hill Street Blues, that's become so popular lately. And something called Crime Story, which I'm looking forward to because it's set in the 60s. And now on to the episode. Episode 544, originally aired Wednesday, September 17th, 1986. Lily packs her things to move out of the Capwell guest house. Pearl thinks Victoria is upset because he mentioned Kelly and takes her home. At the Capwell house, he encounters Courtney. Well, actually, he shows up there, I think just to chat with Courtney, but she's heard that he's been spending time with Victoria Lane. And, of course, she's extremely jealous, as you might be, because Pearl has kind of just still been stringing her along, knowing that she's fully interested in him. And she's upset because she says all the guys that used to leave her, such as David Laurent, whom she had started seeing, they all ended up leaving her for Madeline. And so she could at least blame that on Madeline. But now that Madeline's dead, she seems to realize that it must be her that's scaring off all these guys. Presumably they weren't all as flaky as Pearl, though.
Yeah, I feel like we're really teeing things up for a reveal that Courtney may have had something to do with Madeline's death.
This seems to be an extra piece of information. And remember, we've only seen 2/3 of Madeline's appearances on the show, so I really feel like they put the murder on hold, as I theorized, because they needed another woman to hang around with Pearl when Kelly was suddenly written off the canvas.
But I think the reason why Pearl shows up is because Courtney's been trying to get a hold of him this whole time.
That's right. He says someone left a message that someone at the Capwell house wanted me or something.
Yeah.
But Pearl doesn't want to just cut her off completely. He says, hey, we're official friends. We formed our own club. That sounds more like Paul Rudd in the Shrink Next Door than Pearl. And he says, we formed our own club. And Courtney says, well, I quit. So presumably she's quit Pearl. And let's see, are there any other single guys she could go after? Well, Ted's her cousin, so not Ted. Probably a bit early for Brick. Who else is single? Mason? No, it's a cousin too. Any Lockridges? Nope. Lionel. Yeah, I don't see a lot for Courtney right now in the future.
Not a lot of action for Courtney in Santa Barbara. I remember the first season of this show. We had so many lawyers and there were a lot of potential people, but that's all fallen by the wayside.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, as we've already witnessed, as Santa Barbara progresses, it becomes the Capwell show, and they don't need the Andrades, the Lockridges, or the Perkinses. And it's amazing how they'll introduce, people like Grant Capwell, who's on for 7 episodes. They'll even introduce other Capwells in the future who are just there to be there for this one storyline, and then they're cut off, and it really ends up focusing just on the core Capwells, which is crazy that a show can be sustained that way. But I guess it's what the writers decided to do, rather than the, Montague Capulet feud that it started with a couple of other, interesting families thrown in. They're going to start cutting bait, and we will see some more initial characters sloughed off by the end of this year. So Amy's not the last to go from that group.
Well, I think we talked about this a lot in the first season as we were starting to see this pattern progressing. And we're talking about, I think we were watching Dynasty at the time, and it's the same sort of thing where they originally set it up so there was this fabulously wealthy family and this poor family of strivers, and by the end of the first season, the family of strivers is pretty much gone.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've noticed with Santa Barbara, and maybe this plays into it, is it seems to me the cast is much smaller, actually, than we get in some of our modern soap operas.
I always thought Santa Barbara had a massive cast when looking at it. And Santa Barbara's the first show where I noticed that, they're only featuring a third or a quarter of their cast in each episode. But, watching old Another World episodes as we are now, they did that to some extent, but I guess it wasn't as obvious to me, maybe because Another World was an hour long or 90 minutes for a while, that I thought most of the cast was in every episode, but it seems like it was just when they had the party scenes. And now with Days of Our Lives, they've really gotten it to a science where they'll even take some cast members and put them on hold for a few months so they don't have to pay the actors and then bring back a character who's just been in Chicago for 6 months or a year or something like that.
I'm thinking of when we first started this podcast, and you were very gung-ho. I remember you had a screensaver or a wallpaper on your computer with the cast photo from, I think it was...
First season.
Because
Veronica, wasn't it? Was that her name? Veronica, Mason's secretary?
The first version of Joe Perkins was in it as well. And when you compare that, this fitting onto a small laptop with the enormous cast we just saw a shot of from the General Hospital 60th anniversary, it seemed to me that certainly had a much larger cast than the one we're seeing in Santa Barbara.
I guess so. Our main cast is somewhere between 20 and 30 people. They seem to be pretty steady, though, as we've noticed. They get rid of Madeline, but brought in, I don't know, Keith or something around the same time. The number of people being paid, as regulars is pretty stable on the show. So, but then again, there's also the annual meeting with NBC to see how much they're making and how much they're expending, and that could change things too. Haley almost tells Brick she threw that can that killed Amy, but Mason and Lily stop her. Gina also shows up and with a bunch of photographers to blame Amy's death on Lily. and also manages to tell Haley, just keep your mouth shut. While she's there, this is, of course, all in the church where Amy's service is going to be happening later, which I don't think it actually happened in this episode. So presumably it's still about to happen. Or tomorrow we'll see Brick and he'll go, that was a nice service. Haley calls the police to tell them that they should question Haley Blake, is that her last name? About the incident. So the police turn up to take Haley in to be questioned, and Gina manages to tell her that she could get Ted in trouble if she spills everything, so keep that in mind. Unknown to everyone involved, forensics has found a piece of the tin can that had the explosive residue on it, and on one side of it, the outside I'm guessing, it has a fingerprint of Haley's. So both Keith and Cruz are aware of this when they are questioning Haley. But first they're actually in the middle of questioning Ted when that info comes in. Ted's still covering for Haley, and then Cruz says, oh, guess what? We just found out that Haley's fingerprints were on that can. And then Ted freaks out and goes, oh, I need to talk to Haley. Keith says, not before we talk to her. So he manages to keep Ted and Haley from talking as they usher Haley in, but she is with Mason and Lily. And Mason tells Haley that she's not, she can change her mind at any time about answering these questions. And then they find out about the fingerprint too. And Mason says, well, all that means is that Haley had a can of soda at some point. So Haley doesn't really talk much with everyone else talking over her. She doesn't have a chance to confess anything. And Cruz has her booked. And Keith says that she's guilty and Ted's covering for her, which I think Cruz also can see. Ted bails out Haley and tells her he's got her suitcase in the car. But she says, I'm not leaving town with you. And she goes out just to get her suitcase. So that, hopefully her going to the car and getting her suitcase won't be looked on as an attempt to escape. But she is on bail, and I guess she can have a suitcase in her possession. So do you think Haley's going to end up behind bars? She got bailed very quickly, so...
Well, it seems like she's still more concerned about Lily than herself. So it wouldn't really surprise me if she just kind of throws herself on the mercy of the court to protect Lily. I feel like that's what Gina's afraid she's going to do. But you're right, she is out on bail, so you assume that it'll be a little while before she actually has to face a judge. It seems to me that running out of town with Ted would be a good way to get her bail revoked. So it's probably a good sign that she's not doing that.
Yeah. We'll see how quickly this goes, because I don't know what else the forensics can tell them, unless they search, what was that guy's name, Tommy? Unless they search his house and find all the bomb-making equipment, which really they should, but really Haley should... It's weird that Haley doesn't remember that he handed her the can, because he actually spent like a minute and a half talking her into throwing it just before that. It's not like there was a heat of things and cans were being passed around by someone whose name may have been forgotten. She actively talked to him for a long time. And then he handed her a can from his backpack or something. So the fact that she's not really remembering that is bizarre. But maybe she's actually in shock from the whole thing and has forgotten that it was him that handed it to her.
I think on a practical level, we've got sort of 3 court cases. We've got the one that is related to Madeline's murder, which we've already mentioned. That's still pending. We still don't have a suspect. We've got the whole thing with Dylan Hartley's murder, which, remember, Kelly is on the run from. So that's coming up. And now we have this thing with Haley. So I feel like one of these has to be wrapped up soon to give a little more precedence to the other 2.
And then Keith's going to try and go after Cruz for Katie as well. So that's another thing. And as we'll see, Cruz is going to try to go after Keith for using a black market bug on him, which we will see in a couple of scenes.
Plus, we've had some hints that Keith and Gina could be in trouble because there's definitely kind of a mounting suspicion that they may have had a role in Santana's drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's actually like 6 potential cases going on. Not to mention who Cece might try to sue when he finds out Lionel's living in the Lockridge house. Eden tries to comfort Brick at the church, and later Lionel tries to comfort Brick at somewhere. I don't remember where. Just thought I'd mention they were in this episode. Eden tells Cruz that she thinks Keith hates him because Cruz stole Victoria from him. This is the information she gleaned from a single conversation with Keith, who, of course, was still keeping things close to his vest. It seems like a long time Eden's been trying to figure out the full story. Cruz tells her that it was not Victoria, that it was actually Keith's sister Katie that he was seeing. And Eden says, when? And he says, about 5 years ago. And then Eden says, were you seeing Victoria? And Cruz says, around that time, yeah. So Eden says, I don't know why it's been like pulling teeth. It seems very straightforward. I think this is goes to what I've been saying, that other people, on the Santa Barbara cruise in 2019 had mentioned that the earring storyline seemed to go on forever. I don't have a sense of how much longer it's going to go, and also we're watching these episodes, we're watching 5 in 2 weeks, so we're actually stretching it out more than the viewer at the time would have been. So I'm hoping this doesn't go on for 8 more months. Mm-hmm. Then Eden overhears Cruz on the phone with Victoria talking about Katie and says, did Victoria know Katie Timmons too? And Cruz doesn't really answer, and so Eden tracks down Victoria and asks her about Katie, and Victoria says she never met her. But I think Victoria was lying. What do you think?
I think so, yeah. I definitely feel like she was. It would be a really interesting twist if she's not.
I mean, it's one thing if there's something to do with Katie's death that she was hiding, but to say she never met a person that was hanging around with the guy that she was dating and another guy from high school was her brother, like, it's weird that she would say that, because it would be something that a lot of people would probably know is not true, so I don't know.
Plus, Santa Barbara's not that big.
Mm-hmm. Keith tells Cruz that he hasn't gone through his phone records yet, but he'll do it tonight. And he just wants Cruz to stew a little bit about what he might find. Keith says, you make me want to make this world a better place to live in without you. Cruz tells Eden he thinks their phone is bugged, and he finds the black market bug and thinks, oh, that's illegal. I can have Keith arrested. So he has Eden phone from a payphone to say that Kelly's coming home tonight and they're going to meet on a certain beach. So Keith takes the bait and waits on the beach for the Capwells to arrive so he can arrest them all. And Cruz arrives alone, and Keith tells Cruz about finding Katie's body on the shore not far from there, and then Cruz reveals that Kelly's not actually coming tonight. So Keith didn't seem too angry, considering things. I think he's just gonna keep hammering at Cruz until something sticks. A powerful scent elsewhere tonight, says the NBC announcer, as the credits roll. That is the end of episode 545. Is that what I said? And we'll be back for the Thursday episode, 546. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
You make me want to make this world, a better place to live in. Without you.
There's just going to be more hot Santa Ana winds blowing tonight.
I think you better get used to the heat, Gina, because you're going to be feeling it a lot from now on.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 545 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Thursday, September 18th, 1986. And it's Thursday, so tonight it's going to be the season premiere of Knots Landing.
Ooh,
and we'll
exciting.
find out, hopefully, what happened to Karen. We'll talk about that a bit tomorrow after we watch the Season 8 premiere. In Santa Barbara, the radio says it's 100 degrees in the shade, and the Santa Ana winds. You never know what will blow in. And into Gina's room blows Santana. I liked the link they made between the name Santana and the Santa Ana winds.
That was clever.
Santana enters and tells Gina she'll prove that Gina tampered with her drugs. Gina tells Keith that Santana is out of rehab, and Keith says, I can't help you. In fact, you probably have got this coming to you for what you did. Santana visits Angel and tries to seduce him in exchange for giving up the goods on Gina. Angel visits Gina while she's being measured for her wedding dress. He says he's going to tell Santana that Gina gave her the pills. And then Gina tries to bribe him with $150,000 to say it was Keith Timmons. She says, I'm coming into a lot of money in November. So this does jibe with my memory that the wedding is in November. So even though we're still in mid-September, sometime in the November sweeps, we will get the wedding of Cece and Sophia, and we will find out what Gina's shenanigans will wreak there.
I have a feeling it might be something like her being willing to give up the tape and prove Kelly innocent in exchange for Cece marrying her. Maybe something like that. That's what I'm guessing.
Now, I think if that is what happens, the question is, will Cece and or Sophia think this is a good idea in order to get Kelly back? And will Sophia and Gina be in adjacent bedrooms at the Capwell Mansion fighting over Cece? Angel doesn't think that a promise of $150,000 2 months in the future is a good bet for him. And so Gina changes tactics and tries to seduce him in exchange for saying it was Keith. In the next time we see them, they're in bed. But a mysterious figure enters Gina's apartment. I think that there was a power failure or something in that at that time, because the person entering had a flashlight. So I don't know. It's got to be either Keith or Haley, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of assuming it'll be Keith, but we'll see.
Or Santana trying to get evidence.
That's true too.
So yeah, we hadn't seen Santana for a while.
Yeah.
But it looks like she's out of rehab, and other than the fact she's got this, is it still the manslaughter charge that's hanging over her for hitting Eden? Was it? That's not even manslaughter. It's just hit and run. So really, that's the only thing she's got to defend herself against. So I suspect Santana won't be the one imprisoned. Eden tells Cruz that she asked Victoria about Katie. She tries to get him to rate her looks compared to Victoria's. Cruz accidentally starts down that path of rating Eden, and then has to get out of it when she says, "And what about Victoria?" At the Orient Express, Keith is drinking a glass of milk. This is not the second time we've seen him drinking milk. And he tries to talk to Victoria about Cruz. And Victoria says, I don't enjoy your company. Keith says to her, you had a great sense of self-preservation when you dumped him. He warns her that he's going after Cruz, of course, for what happened to Katie. And she should probably just stay away from him.
Now, I have to admit, I kind of blank out whenever this whole storyline comes up because I just find it confusing. And I guess, unlike a lot of fans, I'm not really that interested in Cruz and Eden. So I'm still confused about the earring.
Well, Eden had that good comment in the last episode. This seems very straightforward. Why are you all making this so convoluted?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of my feeling about it as well.
Santana runs into Victoria, and they kind of recognize each other and from school. And they talk about Keith and Cruz also. They realize they're both Cruz's exes. And they seem to get along okay and, give each other condolences on their various issues with Cruz. So that might be an interesting pairing to see Santana and Victoria hanging out. Something for Santana to do.
I'm still struggling to find Victoria interesting.
Well, she's mostly hair. At this point, Mason tells Lily to act less suspicious while they're waiting for Haley's interrogation to finish. Then Ted has his interrogation, and he blames himself for letting Haley get involved with Lily. I think he did try to stop that as much as he, kind of could under the circumstances. And he kind of storms out of the interrogation saying, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. And we don't see what the follow-up on that. So, I don't know. These statements are the ones that are under oath. So it's going to be a bit of a sloppy transcription of his testimony. I don't know. They may have to call him in again to force him to give a more clear account. Gina visits Lily and tells her to get out of town. If I see you after tomorrow, you're going to wish you were never born. And then Lily says, no, someday you're going to wish I was never born. Mason is concerned to find Gina in the guest house and Lily nowhere to be seen. Gina says, don't worry, I haven't disposed of the body yet. It turns out Lily's just in the bathroom. Gina tells Mason that she'll be sure he gets an invitation to the wedding, which, of course, confuses Mason. Lily confesses to Mason that she doesn't really believe any of what she's been preaching, just like her parents. Mason leaves, but comes back later and says, I've been walking around wondering if I should go into a bar and let all my sins wash back on. But it looks like he resisted that temptation. And then Lily tells Mason that her parents' ministry was all a big show and that she was backdoor adopted as a sort of a prop for them. And she says, I finally want to be able to give you something real. And they start to make out. And then there's the power failure. So I'm thinking that's why I thought there was a power failure in Gina's apartment too. There might have been something. Mm-hmm. But we never find out the cause of the power failure in this episode, whether it's localized or across the town. So I don't know if that will become a bigger thing. Will the whole next episode be in the dark?
Mm-hmm.
Got a bunch of people at the Orient Express, which is probably going to be kind of dark, although they got windows on the fourth wall, probably, looking out over the sea. We only have that time of construction to kind of guess what that wall looked like. And that's it for this episode, a Thursday episode. So kind of easy to summarize. The Cruz and Eden scenes are all basically back and forth. A lot of the Keith and Victoria and Keith and, anyone scenes are the same related to Katie. This whole storyline seems to just be on a treadmill. Every time they discuss it, nothing really is moving forward.
Yeah, to me it's a little disappointing because I just feel like Keith and Gina kind of crackle when they're together, or Keith and Mason or whatever. And I feel like they're kind of wasting that energy a little bit.
Having to talk about Katie and Victoria.
Yeah.
Well, now with Santana back, maybe that'll add some energy.
Yeah.
I wonder if, over the years as Santana comes and goes, if they'll make that Santana Wins association again. Mm-hmm. Well, looking forward to Knots Landing season premiere tonight. And then tomorrow we will watch episode 546 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bonk.
In fact, I've been walking around the whole time, trying to resist the temptation to stop off in the nearest bar and wash all my sins back on. It's never right between us, Dan. When you're ready to listen, I've lost my voice, and when I'm ready, you're looking for an ulterior motive. So much in life comes down to timing, doesn't it? And you and I are always just a few steps out of sync.
It's Friday, September 19th, 1986, and Misha and Dianne are watching Santa Barbara. I noticed when I was cutting together the first few episodes of this week that you couldn't really see my new Hawaii 5-0 shirt very well. So I thought I would give a little bit of a better look at the design. We stopped at the Hilton Hawaiian Village while we were in Hawaii a few weeks ago, and there's one little gift shop there that still has some Hawaii 5-0 merchandise, mostly from the new version, but a couple of things had Jack Lord on them as well. Mm-hmm. Last night, Thursday, was the season premiere of Knots Landing, Season 8, and Karen Fairgate woke up in a strange place. She had been kidnapped by a man that we will find out in the coming weeks is named Phil Harbert. And the reason we know that is that Diane and I, on our Knots Landing watch that we do every Thursday, just recently watched these episodes a few months ago. We're about halfway through Season 8. So Santa Barbara and Knots Landing are syncing up, as is Hill Street Blues, which we only have 2 episodes left of Hill Street Blues. Episode 546 of Santa Barbara aired today, and Keith walks in on Gina and Angel in bed. And actually, there was a lot of discussion about the power failure being over in this episode, so there were actually several people affected by the power failure last time. It just was kind of unclear, maybe because the VHS tape was a little blurry. Gina gets a bunch of money from Keith to pay off Angel and get him out of town. Keith says, "This guy sleeps with my girlfriend and you want me to pay him?" Then Gina gives the money to Angel and tells him, "Now make sure you tell Santana that Keith is the one who gave you the drugs, who bought the drugs from you." So Santana tells Angel that she won't turn him in. She just wants proof that Gina was the person who switched her pills. And Angel says, "Oh, I can't tell you that because it was Keith Timmons." So now this is finally the first real evidence we have that Angel's actually going to live up to what he's told Gina. So, and of course, his plan is to get out of town as quickly as possible because Keith is the DA, and who knows what he can do. So I don't remember any of this from 35 or so years ago watching this. So I have no idea. I have no idea who ended up getting the blame for this or how someone weasels out of it.
I just hope that Angel gets out of town really quickly.
Eden asks Cruz how he'd feel if an attractive man from her past showed up in Santa Barbara. Well, we'll get a few years to wait for that. Plus, there's a twist, I think, if I remember correctly. Santana tells Cruz that Angel named Keith is the drug supplier. So Cruz leaves, and that leaves Eden and Santana alone. So Eden finds out from Santana that Katie was interested in Cruz before Victoria happened on the scene, and that there's no way that Victoria couldn't have known Katie. So Eden knows that Victoria lied to her yesterday about never meeting Katie. Eden goes to Victoria and asks her to come forward if there's anything she knows that could stop this war between Keith and Cruz. So I don't know if the writers are trying to make it seem like maybe somehow Victoria had something actively to do with Katie's death and Cruz is covering that up. Certainly, I think this is where Eden's mind is going. Not that she thinks not that she knows the death is involved at this point. That's probably going to be another slow reveal for her.
I've been looking forward for so long to this reunion and what was going to happen between Keith and Cruz. And I have to admit, with all this new stuff with Katie and Victoria, that's just getting less and less interesting to me. I kind of liked it when Keith was just a complete jerk and, wasn't being humanized at all.
Well, he's still got some of the best snarky comments.
He does.
This is 2 weeks in a row that our quote of the week goes to Keith.
And actually, one part of that quote you missed was when he said, "There's a word for that."
Which bit?
When he said, I'm paying a man to sleep with my girlfriend. There's a word for that.
I'd forgotten about that. Cruz finds Keith, and Keith tells him, Angel has left town. The DA's office didn't need him anymore. So this may flummox Cruz's plans. I don't know if Keith knows that he fingered him. I think maybe Keith thinks he's helping cover for Gina. But, Keith takes the opportunity to do more of his "I'm coming for you, Castillo" stuff. A lot of this stuff is happening at the Orient Express. A lot of our cast were there today. Gina spends the afternoon drinking water at the Orient Express pretending to get drunk. The waiter is in on it with her. And, of course, she is setting up an alibi for something she has planned. Keith ends up carrying her home as she pretends she's totally conked out on the dance floor. And he just leaves her on her bed, thinking she is unconscious.
Which is funny, because Gina's, like, bigger than Keith, so...
Now that her alibi is set, she sneaks over to Keith's apartment with the bag of drugs Angel got from her, and they're huge. It's like a huge Ziploc, one of those giant ones full of white pills. And she decides to bury them in Keith's cat litter box for Cruz to find. I think at the very end, though, she heard a sound, so I don't know if that's going to be Keith coming home and catching her in the end. Sophia tells Cece that her dressmaker is also making a wedding dress for Gina, which worries her a little bit. Cece says, Gina and Keith? And Sophia says, I don't know. I thought she was after Mason. Little do they know that dress is for Gina's wedding to Cece. Mason and Lily have sex, and Mason realizes that she wasn't a virgin after all. He gets drunk at the Orient Express. The bartender cuts him off, and he tries to get Cece to fire him. Cece is disappointed to see the old Mason has returned. I'm not going to watch you crawl back into the bottle. Have the courage to be the person that Mary loved. And Mason says, Mary's not here anymore. And Mason says a very interesting thing. It's never right between us. You and I are always just a few steps out of sync. So this is a good point to make, because we've already seen them go back and forth a couple of times. You're in the whale, you're out of the whale, you're in the house, you're out of the house. And, of course, this will continue for many more years, and this is actually a very good way to maybe justify that for the writers, that they're always just a few steps out of sync. So when Cece is maybe in a reconciliatory mood with Mason, Mason is not, and vice versa. Mason finds Lily packing. Lily's traveling light, says Mason. He is very angry with her, but there is a twist. He says, we both know what your brethren can do for us. They can sweat while we reap the harvest. I've been watching you, Lily. I've seen how you draw people in. Now it's my turn. Wish me luck. So, are we going to see the return of Mason's white suit as he becomes an evangelist to try and fleece a bunch of the citizens of Santa Barbara? Or will he have a higher class of people in mind?
Well, we have seen, at least for part of this episode, the disappearance of Lily's white dress.
Yes, she was all in black after she and Mason got together. Yeah, so I guess this is now going to be a new turn for Mason and Lily's part of the story. Lily and Gina, of course, are still on the same trajectory with each other, I think. And that is it for the week 112 of Santa Barbara. As I said, I don't remember anything that happens till the wedding in November, so this will all be new and interesting to me. This is, of course, fall 86, so I don't know if we talked about this already, because we've taken so many months to do these few weeks. But, of course, I'm back in Vancouver at SFU for continuing my computer science degree. And you graduated in 86, so you would be starting school, right?
Yes, I'm just starting my first term at what was then known as Capilano College in North Vancouver. It is now Capilano University, so it's gone up in the world a little bit.
How long did you go there for?
3 years, I think. 2 years.
But you got your degree from
Simon
UBC,
Fraser University.
So you transferred up your credits up to SFU?
Yeah.
Similar to what I did with
all my
Okanagan
friends.
College.
So we were all there together at Capilano College for 3 years, and then we went off to SFU.
I never knew that. I thought
years.
you were at SFU the whole time.
Yeah.
We don't remember running into each other there. We'll be back for week 113 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara, the world's only long-form documentary / review / after show. There, that should get us out of any copyright
/
issues.
fashion show.
We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I've got Angel in a pretty good frame of mind, if I do say so myself. If you just give him a little money, there won't be a problem. He'll think he got a good deal tonight.
Let me get this straight. This guy sleeps with my girlfriend, and you want me to pay him. There's got to be a name for this.